I work for a fairly large computer company that's a competitor of Mr. Gates up there. I'm curious, as a common, ordinary person and a common shareholder, what can we do, 31,000 some odd folks here do, about the outrageous salaries, bonuses, perks?
Particularly on the compensation card, you can't do much, but there are relatively few people that could do a lot. If the half a dozen or so largest institutional owners took a position on extreme cases, I don't advise them trying to go after each one, but when they see something egregious, if they would simply withhold their votes and issue a short statement as to why they're doing it, that has an effect on particularly on boards of directors. Big shots don't like to be embarrassed. They don't. That gets their attention. The press is an enormous factor. Press is more of a factor in changing corporate behavior than regulations or Sarbanes-Oxley or that sort of thing. You want a good press, but the press needs the material, and the raw material for that could be, I won't name the organizations, but if you take the half a dozen largest investment organizations, I think it would have a lot of impact if they could get together on short statements when they felt pay was really egregious. And I don't know what you individually can do about that, and I don't know how you create the incentives for the big institutions to do that. I mean, it doesn't really do that much for them personally. I think a lot of the checklists that institutions use as determining whether they approve of corporate practices are asinine. I mean, they get sort of the issue du jour, and they get people recommending how they vote their proxies, which is kind of silly. I don't know why they can't make up their minds themselves as to what they think is proper or not proper. And Ben Graham many years ago bemoaned investors as a bunch of sheep, and with big institutions I haven't seen much difference, but it wouldn't take many of them. It would just take a few of the biggest ones and the willingness to speak out, and the press would do the rest, and boards would respond to that. But they're not going to respond to you. I mean, I have to be totally candid about that. A small shareholder can write the most persuasive arguments in the world, and I've been on the boards where they've received those kind of letters, and basically they turn them over to the corporate secretary and say, take care of this, and not, or something of the sort. It takes real effective pressure to change behavior where the behavior is in the self-interest of that person. People do not give up self-interest easily. Charlie?
It's an old question. In England, where they had a lot of class warfare, they at one time got the income taxes up to like 90%, so there just wasn't any possibility of having a large earned income except, by not reporting it. The tax rate got that high. That was quite counterproductive for England. And so you can get a politics of envy that sort of ruins the economic system because of the natural resentments and jealousies and so forth involved in excessive compensation. I think the people taking the compensation have a moral duty not to take it. I would argue that when you rise high enough in American business, you got a moral duty to be underpaid, not to get all you can, but to actually be underpaid. If people are going to be generals and archbishops and everything else at low pay, I don't see why leaders of great big enterprise can't take less than the last dollar.
Do you have any suggestions on how to implement those sentiments?
It's very difficult.
Yeah. Charlie has always said that envy strikes him as the silliest of the 7 deadly sins, because when you're envious of somebody, you feel worse, and they don't feel they feel fine. In fact, maybe they even feel better because you're envious. So it's such a counterproductive type of thing. So we rule out envy as part of your repertoire, and gluttony. I mean, that has some upside to it. I mean, maybe temporary, may have some side effects, but there's something to gluttony. And so lust, of course, I'll let Charlie speak to.